2016. I call to order this meeting of the Goose Creek CISD Board of Trustees. Before proceeding with tonight's agenda, I would like to remind everyone in attendance that this meeting is being recorded through video and audio technologies. Also at this time, I ask everybody to silence or turn off electrical devices. Thank you very much. Ms. Woods, was this meeting properly posted?
Yes.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Dr. Duarte.
President Richard, school board members, Mr. O'Brien, we will begin the opening ceremonies for the July 25th, 2016 board meeting with the prayer led by Pete Poppy. Everyone please rise.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity which we have to be here together to represent the Baytown and Highlands communities. That we may do what's best for our students, for our staff, and our organization. We may represent our community. We may represent them to the best of our ability. And we actually bless our country at this time and with peace, and we will have the opportunities to respect and work with one another, and we may follow that example as we work tonight together. And these things we humbly ask. In the name of Son Jesus Christ, amen. Amen.
The pledges will be led by Janice Coffey.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
On
the
Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. We do not have any recognitions for this evening, but we do have our ELA coordinator, and I know the board wanted to be able to be introduced, so I'm going to ask Mr. Randy Willison to stand up and be recognized with the board.
Welcome.
Welcome. We appreciate you coming to our district. Look forward to a long tenured career. And welcome to Baytown. Next item on the agenda is the citizens' participation. Ms. Garcia, do we have any citizens signed up? We do not. Moving forward then, we have approval of minutes from the July 11th meeting.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Laredo, a second from Ms. Coffey to approve the July 11, 2016 minutes as presented. Any discussion? All in favor, would you please raise your right hand? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-4-0 against 1 abstention.
I think that was 5-4.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was 5-4. Thank you, Ms. Coffey. 5-4, 1 abstention. Moving on to action items. A.
This evening we have presentation, or we do not have presentation, a consideration of Parent-Student Handbook and Code of Conduct for the 2016-17 school year.
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion from Ms. Coffey, a second from Mr. Poppy to approve the Parent-Student Handbook and Code of Conduct as presented to us under separate cover earlier. Is there any discussion or questions for clarification?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Who do I ask?
Dr. Duarte, Ms. De La Cruz, could y'all come forward in case it's an academic question versus a discipline type question? Thank you.
Right here, Ms. De La Cruz.
Ms. De La Cruz, just sit here. Oh, she's going to get her book.
I'm talking about. I have a couple.
Okay.
My first one is, and I know because they don't consider it a communicable disease, so what is the district's policy now going to be on head lice?
Well, we're going to have a practice and procedure that the nurses have been trained in the past and will continue to be trained, that we have a no active louse policy, and that a practice, if a child has head lice, they will be sent home for 24 hours until they're treated. And as far as nits go, they will be allowed on campus with nits. The American Pediatric Association does not consider lice a communicable disease or a notifiable disease.
So in here it says live nits or live lice. We're taking that out, and then So what, I mean, like, so it's going to be nurse-specific? They're going to be able to, because we have now, I mean, if you've had a child that has head lice, you don't want them to have you don't want, I mean, it's hard to get rid of.
Right. The nurses will exercise their professional training on head lice. Like I said, when a child is found to have head lice, they will be sent home and treated. They are allowed to return to campus with nits, no live head lice. And there's a difference. And nits, obviously, is the eggs. The reason we took it, yes, and I'm itchy just talking about it, but I'll tell you that we followed the TASB model as it pertains to head lice and nits, and that because the American Pediatric Association does not see it as a communicable disease, it's not appropriate for us to have it as listed as such.
Ms. Cockrell, I'd like to know that I did bring that question up last Friday also, and it was explained to me that we're not changing any procedures on how we handle it. It's still going to be handled through the nurse's office with treatment, and we will still send the student home. It's just not a communicable disease, so we can't list it as such in the student handbook.
Okay. Thank you. Then I have one other question. Two other questions, or I guess technically two other. On the level 2 violations, we've taken out the cheating or copying of work, but we have that. On the academic dishonesty,
Would you reference the page numbers, please,
I'm
Ms.
sorry,
Cockrell?
on page CC 11, and then we have it on CC 27, which is under procedures related to student conduct in safe schools. And now, just for clarification, so if a student is caught cheating, what we're saying is the consequence is only going to be a 0 because we've taken that out as a violation.
Correct. At this point, if a student is caught cheating, then their consequence will be the grade that they earned or failed to earn. But we would not.
Not going to do any other disciplinary?
At this time, our recommendation is no, that's why we wouldn't.
And that's been our practice, is they receive the 0, which...
What if it's a habitual behavior?
I think once we're dealing with habitual, then it starts to go into more of the classroom level, persistent misbehaviors, and then we're able to handle that at another level. But most of our academic dishonesty that we've dealt with have really been taken care of up front.
And if I may point out, the academic dishonesty is addressed in the district's grading guidelines, which is part of administrative guidelines.
Okay. And then I just have another, well, I think I have two more, but just for clarification. So we're now just changing conduct reports to, we're just changing the name that it's an office referral. Is that?
The office referral is, the reason we made that change or that recommendation for change is because that's the terminology that's used in our software program. In Review 360 is office referral.
Regarding that, on page CC7, office referrals are called conduct reports twice, and I think that needs to be corrected.
Okay.
In that paragraph, right under it. It has a conduct report and then a conduct report. Sorry, Jenny.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine.
That too. Just for clarification.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a question about this too, because it's kind of a gray area for me. I know that it's a practice on like junior high campuses. They have conduct cards that get signed in class for different things, and one of the things on there that's listed is being prepared for class. So teachers can use that if students show up without their work. They give them a conduct mark as opposed to a 0 grade. So they're, well, not as opposed to, in addition to, so they're kind of like double slammed at times on things like that. And I didn't know if that falls under this we're trying to clarify here. I mean, is that our practice, that we will issue them conduct marks as well as grade marks for not being prepared for class or not having their homework or?
Okay. For in-class behavior, that not being prepared or any other behavior that needs to be documented. The teachers are going to be encouraged and have been encouraged to enter that in Review 60 to establish documentation as well as patterns of behavior. And so at that point, as far as what negative consequence they receive as it pertains to the grades, that may be more of a question for Dr. Duarte.
Right. Well, I read in here that, you know, academics won't be used for disciplinary purposes, et cetera. So I kind of thought that was a very interesting practice, that a student could receive a 0 and a conduct mark for not showing up to class with homework. Now, I could see if they came without their textbook every day or without their pencils or whatever prepared for class. But if you, and I guess if it's a habitual problem that they're not showing up with their work to turn in, it's kind of a gray area. I'm not sure our teachers understand this, or if this clearly defines that procedure for them.
One of the things that we're doing is working with assistant principals at all levels, elementary, junior, and high school, to prepare training for our teachers so they can have their questions or concerns addressed in August, way before students show up, so we could all be on the same page and be consistent.
Thank you.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, I just have one other question about the phones. We've taken the phones out of level 2, but we still have the I tabbed them. Just give me a second. We have that it's not going to be a level 2 disciplinary thing. We're not going to, there's not going to be a consequence of picking them up under disciplinary options.
I'll tell you that strike, I think my secretary just probably drugged the mouse a little bit too long, because the cell phones will be kept as a level 2. That strike was intended for a mode of paging device, just because paging devices are no longer used.
But it says on the disciplinary options, confiscation
of inappropriate items. The confiscation of inappropriate items, the reason that the discipline committee suggested that be removed is because it's extremely difficult, and kids become very confrontational when adults, assistant principals, or security officers try to take their personal belongings. And in the past, law enforcement has not supported us outside of Goose Creek, like Harris County Sheriff's Department, just because they see that as property of the individuals. And so it's appropriate to give them consequences, but when you go to confiscate things, confiscate their personal property, students become very combative.
But we still have in, what exactly is this first part? Hold on, let me give you the right one. We still have in the student parent handbook that first offense, we will confiscate it. And we still have that. That's what we're going to do in our student handbook.
Right.
So
And that's as it pertains to cell phones, but we put that as a level 2 offense, in that if there's a student that has an inappropriate item, it was more for those items more so than cell phones, because we do have the first step, second step, and other steps as it pertains to cell phones. And so that bullet right there was really more for other inappropriate items that are their personal belongings. We don't encourage teachers to try to confiscate them against the kids.
I know, but as a parent, if I'm reading this, it's confusing. So if that's all. I mean, it's just confusing.
So what we are saying there is that a cell phone is not a nuisance item. It stands alone and the policy is, the guideline is in the handbook, not the code of conduct. Is that correct?
That's correct. Because if you look at the confiscation of an inappropriate item, and we're saying that in the handbook, we're saying that they can have their cell phone, it just cannot be on during the instructional time and the instructional day.
But
So I think that's the
there is a
difference.
consequence if they violate that part of it.
Yes.
And confiscation of the cell phone is still
Yes, sir.
in play.
Yes, sir.
I think that might be what Ms. Cockrell was going for.
Yeah, just because it's confused, you read it here and then it's just as a parent, it's confusing. If you took my kid's cell phone, I would come up and say, hey, it's confusing. that's all. So
That
thank
line
you.
of thinking, Ms. De La Cruz, goes along with the line of thinking that I asked about on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you may want to give your explanation to the board on how you explained to me why bus privileges are being removed as a discipline consequence, but it still remains as a bus consequence.
Well, the thought process for the committee was that the consequences be very logical and progressive in nature. And so while we had bus, if you notice, we did remove bus removal. The thought process was if a student misbehaves in class, if they throw a piece of paper across the room, it's not appropriate for them to receive a consequence of removal from the bus. We want it to be very relational, and that's why we put the cell phone policy still where it's at with the offenses and consequences, and we took the bus removal from bus privileges because we do have a separate section for bus offenses and the appropriate consequences for bus offenses. And so for this, I could see where, as a parent, I too would probably say, oh, wait a minute, my kid's cell phone got taken up. But while we would not consider a cell phone an inappropriate item.
Got it.
So that may provide some clarification.
Okay. Well, and I think if it's, you explained it, I get it. I think that is. I do have a question. Have we ever had anything in the district where we have looked at everything in our schools on safety and civility district-wide, on how we do things, that it's consistent truly with
Are you talking about the enforcement of the code of conduct?
well, the enforcement, but also
consistently?
determining what the code of conduct, what is in it? Have we ever looked at it,
With the
how everybody does it?
The code of conduct is pretty much spelled out by state law. What we have control over is the student handbooks. And the student handbooks are reviewed annually by administration and staff to change with the times as needed. So those are done yearly.
And please note that we do use the TASB model as a guide for updates and any changes, as well as input from Walsh and Anderson. We also subscribe to their resources as it pertains to the Student Code of Conduct and the handbook.
And she has a committee
Yes.
that has representation from the campuses that review all of this. And so they're
But
able
have
to
they
put
done any
input.
safety and civility training? Have we done any safety and civility training district-wide?
District-wide, we provide safety training throughout the year as it pertains to just the campuses and students. And our administrators also attend the summer conferences for their individual level, grade level, like TSSP for the secondary administrators.
But that's, okay. Okay, thank you very much.
I've got two minor questions. Including school hours for the high schools, we had school hours for Lee and school hours for Sterling, but not GCM. Are GCM's hours the same as what, or is their schedule going to be the same as Sterling? Okay. And then,
It should say both campuses on there.
oh, maybe I didn't look at it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a Sterling / Goose Creek
GCM?
Memorial.
Okay, I didn't look closely. The other question I have is on the very last page, we have the student calendar or the school year calendar. And I know this has already been approved, and I don't know if I just didn't understand clearly. On March 25th, if you look at the explanations under March, it says student staff holiday, bad weather day. So March 25th doesn't have any marking on it at all. Typically it would. And it would not normally be a holiday. Are we saying it's a bad weather day, that they would have to go to school on Saturday if we already need a bad weather day by then? Or what's the story there?
And does it need an umbrella in place of the 25? Should there be an umbrella showing it's a bad weather or a holiday, depending whichever one we decide is needed?
It wouldn't be a holiday because it's a Saturday.
Where does it say March? I'm sorry.
It's just a bad weather day, correct? It's used if we need it,
Yeah, but we
and
have.
everyone would be at work or in school on that day.
No, they would not. It's a Saturday.
Yeah, we have the
No,
two
but-
bad weather
I'm
days that are
sorry.
required. It's on February 20th and April 14th.
So what is March 25th?
So March 25th is That's an error.
It's listed as a student staff holiday bad weather day.
And that's an error.
It's a Saturday, so yes,
Saturday's
we're
a
off.
student's day holiday. We're gonna give them Saturdays off.
So we need to correct that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does it have a minutes?
We'd be sick
Thank you.
that day.
Good catch.
Minutes are not.
Those are all my questions.
Shouldn't need that Monday.
Any other questions? Okay, we do have a motion by Ms. Coffey, but we have instructed administration to make some clarifications or whatever, so do we need to amend that motion to approve as presented with clarifications?
So which clarifications are we going to be making?
For the day of the calendar?
The date of the calendar, anything
Well,
else
I
are we
don't think
actually
the
changing?
calendar is part of the code of conduct
No,
of the
it's
student
not.
handbook.
No, it was
Okay.
the other
Right.
clerical.
There was,
The changing of the
On that
word office, conduct report to
Conduct,
office
okay.
right,
referrals.
and I think there was
wherever.
another recommendation that Dr. Duarte had brought regarding the religious conflict on page 29 that had been
That we have
recommended.
at our table? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then I move to approve I adjust my motion so that I'm moving to approve the student handbook and code of conduct, student parent handbook and code of conduct as amended.
I adjust my second.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, any further discussion? All in favor of approving student handbook, please raise your right hand. None opposed, that motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Harris, De La Cruz, and Dr. Duarte. All right, we'll put this away. This was always a fun board meeting for me in my former days, bringing this forward. All right. Oh, my screen went blank again. Okay. All right, moving on. Action items B, consent agenda. Mr. O'Brien.
All right, prior to the presentation of consent agenda, just wanted to make sure everyone got the newest version of the consent agenda as presented earlier this evening to you. Number one, donation from Covestro and J.J. Watt Foundation. Number two, purchase of Edgenuity software licenses. Number three, purchase of 15 iPad carts with 22 iPads and cases each for pre-kindergarten. Number four, interlocal agreement between Goose Creek CISD and Harris County for Community Youth Services, CYS, CIS. Number five, interlocal contract for property tax collection services. Number six, select construction manager at risk, CMAR, as the delivery method for facility condition assessment renovations, repairs, and upgrades at the district-wide facilities. Number seven, revised board policy EIF local academic achievement and graduation. Number eight, TASB localized policy manual update number 104. Number nine, endorsement of representative for Texas Association of School Boards, TASB Board of Directors, Region 4, Position A. Number 10, delinquent ad valorem tax collection contract. Number 11, canceling the November 28th, 2016, December 26th, 2016, and March 13th, 2017 regular school board meetings.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Ms. Coffey, second by Mr. Poppy. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda items?
Why don't you ask? She's got a question.
Okay, Ms. Cockrell?
I'm very talkative tonight. I thought we approved the deal with Harris County and the June 27th meeting.
We did. Would we like Mr. Peoples to approach and give us rationale why this is back on the item, on the agenda, please?
Good catch there. There's a reason. It's technical in nature. Mr. Peebles?
Yes, thanks. Ms. Cockrell, when we did this back, I believe it was in June, there is a paragraph G in there in that agreement that had indemnity provisions in it, where we were indemnifying Harris County. And I was asked to review this document by another district, and they determined that, I also represented Goose Creek on these matters, and when I got it changed in that district and insisted they take the indemnity provisions out of it, they rewrote the agreement for Goose Creek as well and sent us one with the indemnity deleted out like it was for my other client. And so we basically just cleaned it up tonight, and so it should be readopted.
Thank you, Mr. Peoples. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, moving forward for vote. All in favor of approving consent agenda as presented, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? None. Motion carries 6-0. Item C, future board agenda items, board trainings, and board meetings. Does anybody have anything for future board agenda items that they would like us to place on subsequent meetings? I do have a question on future, a request on board meetings. I'd like to canvass the board and see if any of you would be available a week from tonight for a special called meeting, primarily for administrative elections. Who would be available? I would be.
I'm checking.
Okay. A week from today, yes.
Relatively short meeting, just, we're trying to hire people.
Could we do it in the morning?
Let's look at our calendars, if we could do it,
According to this calendar, it would be the 27th.
today's the 25th, a week from today is the 1st of August, right?
I'm
Looking at
available.
August 1st.
I'm available August 1st.
Okay,
There's a
what
GCCISD
time
that
would
day.
you like?
I just
11
rather do
a.m.?
stuff early in the morning, but
7.
No.
7,
My kids are off at camp. I can sleep in.
Would you be available at 11
yes.
On the 1st.
on the 1st? Ms. Cockrell?
I can do
Okay,
early.
and I
just
could,
not
Mr.
7.
Poppy, I know is out of town, and Mr. Sampson is out tonight. So we have 4 confirmations with a maybe, we have a 5, so we have 5. So if there's no objection, I'm going to place a meeting for August 1st at 11 a.m.
We'll need to vote on it.
We have to vote on it, okay?
I move that we
Thank you.
schedule a meeting for August the 1st at 11 a.m.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion to add a board meeting for August 1st at 11 a.m. from Ms. Coffey, second by Mr. Laredo. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much.
Regarding future board agenda items,
Yes, ma'am.
I think we need to spend some time looking at reevaluating our board goals, since we seem to have some confusion as we were working on our superintendent evaluation about exactly what the board goals meant.
Okay. Anybody else with a future agenda item? Okay. All right. At this time, we are going to adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.075, 551.076, 551.082, 551.083, 551.084, 551.087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session. Convene into open session. No action was taken while the board was in closed session. We will now continue with the agenda. Item F, consideration of personnel. I think he has to.
Yeah, I do have to call out by
yes.
name, yes.
Thank you.
Administration does recommend employment of Amber Trunkel as diagnostician, Amy Henderson as math instructional specialist, and Michelle Espinosa as social studies instructional specialist.
A second.
We have a motion from Mr. Laredo, a second from Ms. Cockrell, to approve the employment of diagnostician, math instructional specialist, and social studies instructional specialist as announced by Mr. O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Any against? Motion passes 6-0. Okay. All right. The board will now recess back into closed session for pursuant to the following section, 551.074, superintendent's evaluation. So reconvening into open session. Out of closed session, no action was taken during the closed session. Having no other items on the agenda does anyone have any other items to discuss or anything? Okay. Having not, we are adjourned at 8:01.